bad for you guys right now because my story's about mucus. Yeah, happy Valentine's Day to you. And I'm not talking about the mucus like, you know, that little green booger guy on the Mucinex commercial. I'm talking about that viscous fluid that sits in your lungs and can kill you if you have something like childhood croup or, in my instance, pneumonia. And both times, because my son has had croup, it was my mother who saved the day. But it's the thing about my mother is she's so quiet and unassuming that she never gets the accolades that she deserves for being so quietly strong. So this is a story for my mother about mucus, okay? When I was 3 months pregnant, I was on antibiotics for bronchitis. And I was naive. I didn't know that you could actually get sicker when you're on the antibiotics. So I was sitting in my living room with my lungs literally caving in, waiting for the antibiotics to kick in. And the only smart thing I did was call my parents and say, I'm too sick to drive home for Christmas. You're gonna have to come and get me. And so I'll never forget the look on my mother's face when she walked in and saw me. But true to form, she did not say a discouraging word. She just packed me up with my Christmas gifts and my 2 cats and got me in the car, got me home to the cold regions and into bed. But the minute I woke up in the morning, my mom was in my room, and I do believe she hovered all night long, listening to me breathe. And she said, I don't think you have bronchitis anymore. I think you have pneumonia, and we have to go to the hospital right now. My dad had already left with the car for work, so my mother did something she never did. She reached outside of our family to ask for help, and she called a woman from her church, and she said, Cindy's in a really bad way. I need to get her to the emergency room. And that's how I found myself in the back seat of Vera's car on my way to a little tiny hospital in Lehighton, Pennsylvania, where I was immediately admitted and began treatments for pneumonia. Now, up until that point, to me, pneumonia was this old-timey illness that people got in novels if they lived on the prairie and didn't have access to doctors. So I had no idea that in modern times this could be a life-threatening thing, and I was in jeopardy, and I didn't really understand that. And so they were starting treatments, which basically you nebulize, you breathe in the vaporized steroids to open up your airways. And the therapy is very physical. They pound on your chest and they pound on your back. And I felt like I was being thrown around in the bed like a blow-up doll in a bad Saturday Night Live skit. And everything about this was freaking me out. The steroids, the x-rays, the pounding, because I was pregnant. And it didn't help that the doctor they assigned to me was just straight up mean. And everything about him was accusatory. Like, how could you have been so stupid as to get pneumonia? And even the smallest concern that I would express about what the treatments might do for my kid, he would bark at me. And he would say, if you're dead, there's no baby. So just do what I say, or you're gonna die. So I'm immediately on the phone to my midwives, because I was getting my prenatal care from the midwives in Bryn Mawr, the birth center. They're like goddesses. They glow, right? And I'm saying, you have to talk to him. You have to tell him not to talk to me like that. And all of a sudden, they went from being like goddesses to being like the fairies in Sleeping Beauty. And I can just hear them flitting around going, we have no powers there. We have no power. And they basically said, you have to do what he says and get well and get back to us, okay? So I'm near hysteria. And the only emotional support I have is my mother. A mother who had, as a young woman, lost a baby in a hospital under a doctor's care, and who had the strength to sit with me and calm me down and help me to understand what I needed to do. Now, the next day was Christmas, and my mother comes trooping into the room with my dad and my 2 brothers, and they're dragging green garbage bags behind them. And the nurses are beaming, and I realize that my mother has packed up the entire family Christmas and brought it into my hospital room. And so she hasn't just brought my gifts, she's brought everyone's gifts, because we're gonna do Christmas the way we do it at home. And we're gonna open one gift, and then the next gift, and then the next gift, and now, like, in our family, it's endless. It's endless. It's crazy. And this was the year that one of my brothers bought my mom a Monet print and had it framed. It was wooden, it was heavy. The boys are lugging it in because they're not going to let me miss a thing. And it's the first time I laughed. It's the first time I laughed. And there's a picture of me in the hospital bed with the IVs, and I'm so diminished. I look like I'm 12, but I'm smiling. And I'm able to move forward. And so for the next 8 days, I'm getting my treatment. So here's the mucus part, okay? If you're lucky enough to have those steroids work and the pounding works, the mucus starts to pour out. It pours out like lava. It pours out like a fountain of like Elmer's glue, right? And my mother for 8 days sat next to me with tissues, a basin, and a glass of water and let me pour, all right? And I want you to know that though I truly have messed up my son in many ways, it wasn't with the pneumonia. And every year on my son's birthday, Vera would send him a card with $1 in it, because that's what you do in the coal regions. And she would say, I helped get your mother to the hospital, and I helped get you born, and so you are special to me. You're special to me. So this story tonight is for women like Vera, and for mothers like my mom who are unflappable, even though it's not in their nature to do that. And just in case that doctor's right, and mucus is going to be what takes me out of this world, this is to Mucinex. Okay? Thank you.